Another page is done. This time I have to fly, and then you say those precious words. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me.
When I was at school, between the ages of like 11 and 18, I was pretty much listening to like grunge at home, like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and then I got into Rage Against the Machine after that, and I discovered a bit of Metallica. But my school was pretty much dominated by black music culture. And then it wasn't until I met electronic producers, and when I was like 23, 24, I started making dance music, and then they gave me the confidence to sing. And then when I wrote a song like Change the Way You Kiss Me, there's lyrics in there like, I've never been afraid of the highest heights or afraid of dying. You don't associate lyrics like that with pop music, really. They're sort of lyrics you'd probably associate more with rock, because they're a bit darker and a bit moodier. And I think I've always enjoyed writing kind of gothic, melancholic lyrics because of my days spent listening to grunge and rock and metal, and I think you can trace it all the way through all my songs. Even like with kickstarts, and the love kickstarts again, but if you listen to the verses and the way I sing it, you know, a lot of the songs are in minor keys, and the journey of the lyrics lends itself a lot more to people who sing over guitar riffs than people who sing over synth or trance riffs, you know?
Love kickstarts again.
The new album, Live Life Living, my 5th album. Started recording it last March in LA. Did about a week in LA, then did another few weeks in Sydney, and the rest has been done pretty much in London. When I worked in LA, it was with Stuart Price. I stayed with him for about 5-6 days, did a track a day. The Sydney stuff was pretty much, I'd been sent some beats by the other producer on the album. One of them was my bass player, Sheldrake, and the other one's this new guy I'm managing called Critical. They were sending me beats whilst I was staying in Australia, so I'd sort of just hired out studio and vocals, some stuff, some ideas. And then the rest was done with Fraser T. Smith, who works out of Parsons Green in London. Yeah, it's weird. It's in terms of writing time, I haven't spent much writing time, probably no more than 30 days writing over the last, well, more than a year. But most of the time spent on this album has been, you know, the mixing and the tweaking instruments. In the past, I would be mainly sent beats. So, you know, kickstarts, Stay Awake, Change the Way You Kiss Me, Will Be Coming Back. All these tracks were sent to me by producers, or most of them DJs, and you'd kind of be restricted by what you were sent. You know, like, not that these were bad beats at all, but you couldn't really change the key of them. You could change the arrangement, you could cut up the songs and move them around, but Change the Way You Kiss Me, for instance, the original beat to what you finally hear, you know, apart from some mixing and some added sounds, is pretty much identical. I was writing to what I was given. Whereas on this album, every song's been started on like piano or guitar, and then we'd move it into the right key to suit my voice, which is why I sound a lot more confident in my singing on this album. And then we'd, you know, completely get rid of the guitar and piano and turn them into electronic compositions. When you're sent a beat, you're restricted by the key and the music that you hear, and you might not like some of the sounds in there, as good as that beat might be. And I just wanted to be a lot more hands-on with this album, and by being able to dictate, you know, the chords and the key of every song before we even produced it, you know, before we added drums or bass or synths, I'm a lot more confident with my singing because I'm sort of singing in my comfort zone. The inspiration was all 90s. It was almost like my love letter to the 90s, but I didn't want it to dip into, you know, pastiche or parody, or even, it's not even like paying homage, it's kind of just my interpretation of a lot of my favourite 90s acts. On songs like One More Day and 10 Million People, a lot of people, so they can hear like Robin S and Baby D, and a lot of them more sort of houseier moments. And then the stuff like Take Me As I Am and All the Wrong Places, you can clearly hear Prodigy. And then Next Year and At Night, you can hear everything from Chemical Brothers to Underworld. So there's a real 90s flavour in there. With Stuart, because of his stuff that he'd done as Le Rhythm Digitars and Jacques Leconte and Thin White Duke, you know, 'cause he's got all these pseudonyms, you're aware straight away that he knows his electronic music inside out, and he's very different to a lot of producers in the sense that he uses a lot of hardware. He was hardly using, you know, he's got a lot of plugins on his computer, but he's got so much outboard stuff. Like, it was incredible to see how quickly he was just plugging in different cables here and there, and he had all these different synths set up and drum machines, and was just running all these loops and just knocking together tracks like so quickly. But the way we wrote was he would just find a riff, and I'd say move it up or down, you know, a few semitones, get it in the right key, and then I'd start humming away to ideas. He'd send me a rough little MP3 bounce of it, of just like 16 bars of music, stick my headphones on my laptop, get writing a whole song, load of ideas. By the time I took my headphones off, he'd have like a minute and a half of music. You know, with Fraser T. Smith, a lot of the tracks were started on guitar because he's such an incredible guitar player. And, you know, by the end of the track, you can't even hear any guitar. There's no guitar present. The only track we kept guitar on was Can't Face the World Alone, where we kind of gave it almost Dire Straits, Mark Knopfler style intro. But with Fraser, I worked really quickly as well. Like on Kids Again, 10 Million People, Seen You, it was just a riff, an idea, song title. Usually the song title spawns the sort of catchphrase or punchline before the drop, and then from the tagline, you know, there you work backwards and build a verse out of it. And then from the verses, you might get inspired to write a little rap, because there's like 4 raps on this album, which is the least I've ever done. Yeah, they just come together, and then you go back and forth, sending parts over. I worked on it with this other producer, Critical, who did a lot of additional production, and then we went in, saw you know, my mix engineer Wes, who's mixed my last 4 albums. And Wes is amazing because, you know, he's as much a mix engineer as he is an executive producer. He'll go, that bit there's not necessarily, let's cut it, or that bit there's great, let's extend it. You know, I'm not yet able to sit there and produce a song from scratch by myself, like say Calvin Harris can, or, you know, Chase and Status can. So for me, it's very much about learning from other people. But the interesting thing on this album was being able to collaborate from scratch on every song rather than being sent the music already. I always write songs for festivals first and foremost, because I do about 100 gigs a year, and probably 50 of them are festivals all over the world. And the more I've travelled, I've noticed that whether I rap or I sing, or whether one of my songs is a bit more rocky or a bit more trancey or techno or dubstep, it doesn't really matter. It's not really about the genre, it's not about the language that you speak in, it's just about how the song makes people feel. And that can be as much down to the lyrics as it can be to the melody or the riff that you've got recorded in there, you know. Certain songs are hands in the air, certain songs are less mosh, certain songs will put your arms around your friends. And when I'm in the studio writing a song, I think, what kind of song is this going to be? Is this going to be a hands in the air, or is it going to be a, you know? And then afterwards you can tweak them for club and for radio. You know, they've got these amazing guys in Sweden, incredible producers, songwriters, who just churn out a production line of songs which, you know, they could be for Nicole Scherzinger, and you change one word, and then they're for Bruno Mars, and then you change another word, and they're for, I don't know, Jason Derulo. And it's incredible what they do. I think it's very impressive, but it's not what I want to do. I've probably made 2 mistakes in my career, in terms, 2 major ones, where I made a song called 2 Lives on my second album, which was me trying to do like Coldplay, Robbie Williams-esque pop rock, and it just really didn't work as a single or as a video, or it didn't work live. And a lot of fans like the song because it's not a bad song, but it just wasn't me in any way. I think you go through transitional phases in your career, and you go through learning curves where someone at the record label or producer you're with says, I think you should do a song like that. And you do it, and the song ends up sounding good, so people assume just because the song sounds good that you should release it. But you shouldn't. You should release songs that mean something to you, and I think separate you from everyone else. There's been a lot of copycats to what I do over the last few years, but when I made songs like Kickstarts and Change the Way You Kiss Me and Stay Awake, there was nothing else like them on radio really anywhere. And since then, there's been, you know, they've influenced other people, which is great. And I've often tried to distance myself and come up with new things. And then you do new experimental songs, like All the Wrong Places last summer. It doesn't react as well, and then inevitably someone at a record label or radio goes, oh, we wish you'd make more songs like that. I mean, I can make songs like that with my eyes closed, you know. So what you end up doing is you play a game, and you have to play the game, especially when you're in my position where you're headlining festivals or arenas. You know, to a certain extent you can dictate what you do and what you want to do. You need to be on radio in order to, you know, sell albums or sell tickets, you know, or your label want you to be on radio. So I've always played the game where I've given people hits, you know, that bit more mainstream sound, and then the rest of the album you can do whatever the hell you like. So if you listen to my album, you'll hear 3 or 4 songs on there which are sort of like the, I suppose, more pop moments, even though like, I think a lot of them are really interesting songs. They've got a nice edge to them. The rest of the album, there's some really heavy, dark, interesting moments. When I started off, I didn't really know what I was doing. I started off just writing raps, like 16-bar rap verses. I didn't have a clue about how to structure a song or what a chorus was. And then once you start writing choruses and working with different producers and seeing, oh right, you've got an intro here, then you've got a verse and a pre-chorus and a chorus and a post-chorus, or a bridge and then a breakdown and a middle eight. You learn what all these things are as you go along. So I think the best thing to do is to just go out there and look at your favourite artists and try and do your interpretation of all your favourite artists, because that's essentially what music is. It's like, my favourite music is grunge, and all I listen to are grunge bands from the 90s even to this day. But I make electronic music because I don't play guitar and I'm not in a grunge band. But I think when people hear my songs, sometimes you can hear lyrics in them and you can go, oh, that's quite dark, and the way I sing is probably more similar to a blues singer rather than an R&B singer, because I'm not pitch perfect, and there's a lot of character in my voice. It's not a sweet and soulful voice. So I think find your favourite songs and bands and work out kind of where you want to take that, because I think that's when the most exciting music comes out. I started off, my first album was hip hop, and my second album was electro pop, and my third album had dubstep and trance on it, and my fourth album was a rock album. My fifth album is a love letter to the 90s. It's like, but the only thing that stayed constant throughout it is my vocal. Some of my favourite songs ever, which still really work well live, have been ones like the intro tracks to my album, like Come Taste the Rainbow on my last album, the one before that Skies Don't Lie, and the one before that there was a track called From Space. And all these tracks started off with like 2-minute raps and ended with some weird, out there singing, which wasn't even really a chorus. It was just felt like a chant or a bridge. And then they kind of went into like mad, crazy drops. And these are some of the most exciting songs live, and they don't have any structure to them in terms of a classical pop sense. They don't go verse, chorus, or whatever. And these are where the sort of eureka moments come from, because then they inspire stuff later on.
Your perfect replacement.